Welcome. This is Dramas, Dreams, and Drollery, and I am Mark, your host, and the creator of all works that appear on this channel. The plays, short stories, and poems are offered free of charge for your enjoyment, but you may not use them commercially. I alone retain the copyright to them. Technical assistance for these programs is provided by my granddaughter, India. Have you ever dreamed of winning great wealth at a Las Vegas casino? In today's short story, entitled Opportunity, two clever young men seize a chance to do just that. Unfortunately, they could not foresee the complete consequences of their actions. Here is Opportunity. When the bell rang to end fifth period, Wally Huffman was the first student out of the door of room 305. Long legs and jeans propelled him rapidly down the hall, while a backpack flopped loosely over a tightened sweatshirt. Barinder Singh, in similar attire, awaited him at the end of the hall. "Hey, Bar, what's up?" Wally asked as he high-fived his best friend. "Nothing much. I thought we might get together tonight. Maybe do a little hacking?" "Yeah, I'd like to hang out. But instead of hacking, I've got something else that's pretty cool. Come over to my place right after dinner." It was easy for Brenda to get about. For his 18th birthday, Dad, a high-salaried accountant at a local casino, had given him a sleek new Lexus convertible. Though holding a lucrative job as security director of the phone company, Wally's father was not nearly as generous. The Huffman child rode the school bus daily from his Boulder City home to Saguaro High in Las Vegas. The best friends had much in common. Wally had been born in Las Vegas and Bar in Amritsar, India, yet their birth dates were but 3 days apart. Possessing high intelligence and an aptitude for mathematics, the two young men shared a passion for computers and cars. For the past 6 months, they had been hacking into computer systems around the world, snooping but not stealing. Though jealous of Bar's Lexus, Wally had his eyes on another prize. He and his father often drove out of their way in order to pass the showroom on the Strip where the Maserati was on display. Father and son both swore that one day they would own one. Bar arrived at the Huffman residence shortly before 8. After a brief greeting to Wally's parents, he retreated to their son's bedroom, an electronic wonderland. A beneficiary of phone company discards, Wally had an extensive network of computer and communication devices strung across the room. Only Cognoscenti could make sense of this chamber. Upon seeing his friend enter the room, Wally went straight to the cool idea in his head. "You know my dad is chief of security at the phone company." "Yeah?" "A week ago, Dad told our family that on the next night an FBI agent would be coming to our house. The two of them wanted a private meeting without the knowledge of people in the phone company. Naturally, our family could not be part of their discussion, and we family members are not even supposed to tell anyone about the meeting. I knew that Dad would talk with a man in our office at home. So before the meeting, I placed a bug in the office. I was just curious about this hush-hush conversation. Am I glad I did? I learned some very interesting things. Dad told the agent in detail how to get around the company security devices and how to tap into phone lines. Was that man dumb? Dad had to explain the procedures over and over so that he could understand them. About the third or fourth time it hit me that you and I could use that information to good advantage. At the phone company, I visit Dad's office all the time. Adjacent to that office is the phone company's central control room. 3 days ago, I slipped in there and fixed things so that now I can tap into any phone in the Las Vegas area right from this room. I even have lists of private numbers of important people. To test things out yesterday, I eavesdropped on Todd Irwin, the golfer. He owns a condo in town. Wow, I heard a scorching conversation he had with a showgirl from the Golden Palace Casino. Today, I tapped into the phone of Julius Epstein, manager of the Royal Flush Casino. I set things up so that if anyone calls him, a buzzer will sound in my room. I've got 2 headsets hooked up so we can listen tonight at the same time. Between his calls, we could do our homework. Speaking of homework, I wanted to ask you about calculus problem number 7. The buzzer sounded just as the boys were turning to calculus problem 10. Hello? Mr. Epstein, I have something important to tell you, so please listen carefully. Before I begin, you should know that my voice has been altered electronically. It is useless for you to make a recording. You will not learn my identity that way. The purpose of this call is to demand, that you pay me $1 million in cash on Friday. Who is this? Why should I give you $1 million? Because I possess some information that in the wrong hands would cost you your life. Your life is worth $1 million, isn't it, Mr. Epstein? Go on. What's this all about? For at least the past 2 years, you've been skimming money from the casino's legitimate profits, and you've done it so cleverly that even the owners in Chicago aren't aware of the theft. By my estimate, you've taken in no less than $4 million. Thus, it is not unreasonable of me to ask a mere $1 million to keep this information from the police, and even worse, Mr. Righetti in Chicago. Now, you may think that my words are sheer speculation, but you are wrong. I know exactly what you are doing, and I have proof that would convince any reasonable person. To demonstrate my knowledge, I will tell you exactly, well, let's say within $5 or $10, the amount that you skimmed last month. It was $191,406. My, what greed. How'd you get that information? Well, let's call it a secret of the trade. How I obtained that information is not your immediate concern. Your first responsibility is to collect the $1 million for payment to me. Let's be clear on certain points. I want no tricks. The money must be in unmarked bills of small denomination. It must be free of tracking gadgets, dyes, or explosive devices, and it must be delivered precisely as directed. Do you understand? Yes. Do you agree to my conditions in exchange for your life? Yes. Good. Then Friday evening at 7 p.m., you will take the money in the sort of bag that airlines define as a carry-on to the northwest corner of the intersection of Spring Mountain Road and the Las Vegas Strip. There, you'll find a man vending newspapers in a kiosk. Hand the bag to him and depart at once. Make no attempt to interrogate the man or to intercept the bag. Have you understood? Yes. Then farewell. The speaker hung up. Before the boys hung up, they could hear Epstein uttering expletives. That's incredible, said Barr. You see, I told you this phone tapping could be fun. Yeah, but this is more than just fun. This is an opportunity. What do you mean? Why should we sit passively while one crook steals $1 million from another? Why shouldn't we take it? There's nothing wrong with stealing from crooks. Oh, hold on there. Messing around with guys like that is dangerous business. Anyway, how could we pull off such a theft? Look, neither of those guys knows that we were listening. That means they're going to go through the transaction just as it was described. But we control the situation. Having the element of surprise, we can snatch the money right from under their noses and they won't even know who did it. Well, I don't see how we could pull this off. The pickup spot is a public place. Epstein is no dummy. Even if he goes in person, makes the delivery, and backs off as instructed, he's going to have other people watching that newsstand like hawks. We'd never get away. You'd be right if everything went just as the caller ordered. But we're going to change the plans. Right now, I have a rough sketch in my head. Give me a little more time to work out the details. I'll explain it all to you soon. You know, don't you, that these are ruthless people. They'd kill us for sure if they caught us. We aren't going to get caught. Trust me. Around 10 the next morning, Julius Epstein received a report in his office at the Royal Flush Casino from a henchman named Rudy Galano. The latter, a burly man draped in a suit of coarse taste, had a reputation for toughness and unquestioned loyalty. "So what have you found out?" asked Epstein. "Honestly, boss, I haven't found out much. Like you said, I had Sal and Lou check the casino from top to bottom for secret cameras or listening devices. They came up empty. It's got to be an inside job. 20 or 30 people could have done it." "Well, keep working on it. You did tell Sal and Lou to conduct their search quietly. I don't want anyone else here at the casino to know that we're conducting an internal investigation." "Oh, you can count on us, boss." "Have you looked over that newsstand yet?" "Yeah, it looks pretty ordinary to me." "Don't forget that on Friday, you and the boys need to arrive 2 hours early. I want to know everything and everyone that goes near that place. But don't talk to the salesman in the kiosk." "Right, boss." On Friday evening, the Las Vegas Strip hummed with normal activity. Cars jammed the streets. Garish signs and lights lured pedestrians from the sidewalks into the casinos. About 6:30, a phone company truck pulled up in front of the newspaper kiosk on the corner of Spring Mountain Road. Two workmen in uniform emerged from the vehicle and placed cones around an adjacent area in the street. Removing a manhole cover, they descended into the hole. Standing across the street, Rudy said to Sal, "Oh, what bad luck. Why do these guys have to work now?" Staying alert, this pair and Lou, sitting in a car a half block away, carefully scrutinized every passing human and vehicle. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Exactly at 7, Julius Epstein drove up in his Mercedes. Double parking at the corner near the phone truck, he got out of the car and handed a black bag to the vendor in the kiosk. At once, he returned to the vehicle and drove away. From his position, Rudy watched the kiosk intently. He could see the black bag at the vendor's feet. Nothing unusual was taking place except that the newsman was keeping his eyes fixed on his watch. Suddenly, the vendor grabbed the bag, raced to the open manhole, threw the bag down it, and placed the cover over the hole. Dashing across the street through heavy traffic, Rudy and Sal reached the kiosk 10 seconds later. With difficulty, they removed the manhole cover and Sal scrambled down the ladder. Almost immediately, he shouted up to Rudy, "It's dark down here. Can't see nothing." "Do you see the bag or the workman?" "No, it's too dark." Later that evening, Rudy, Lou, and Sal reported to their superior with considerable trepidation. Epstein flew into an uncontrollable rage. For 15 minutes he cursed his lackeys and threatened to cut off their body parts. Mortifying thoughts circulated through the brain of the manager. Not only had some unknown party extorted money from him, but the perpetrator had escaped with impunity. Right at this moment, someone in the Royal Flush family was chortling about his tour de force over Julius Epstein. The boss told his men that if they wished to live, they had to find the culprit swiftly. He sent them back to the scene of the disaster with instructions to learn everything possible about the episode. Above all, they were to squeeze the vendor until he divulged the complete truth. In addition, they must learn the identities of the phone company employees. On Saturday morning, the trio completed this assignment. By 2 p.m, they were back in the manager's office. "Okay, let's have it," declared Epstein. Rudy spoke for the investigators. "We took that newspaper man for a ride in the desert. In a nice quiet spot, we roughed him up a bit so he could see that we meant business. Then we told him that we would slice him into strips of bacon and fry him if he said one false word. The guy trembled like a leaf the whole time we were with him. I know he told us the truth." "So what did he say?" "According to him, someone left a sealed envelope at his kiosk 3 days before the pickup. There was no stamp or return address on it, only his name. Inside, he found a note telling him that on Friday night at 7, a man would hand him a heavy bag. He was to keep that bag at his side until exactly 7:30, when a courier wearing a carnation would take the bag from him. As a reward for doing this service, he could keep the $50 bill in the envelope, and he could expect another $50 bill after he'd finished the job. Now here's the strange part. On Thursday, he got another note telling him that there had been a change of plans. Before 7 on Friday, a phone company truck would park near his kiosk. Workmen would open a manhole in the street nearby and disappear into it. When the man handed him the bag, he was supposed to wait until exactly 7:07, and then he was supposed to run to the hole, throw the bag down it, and replace the manhole cover immediately. The second note had a $100 bill and a promise of an additional 100 later. What do you make of that? Something fishy about all this. And the telephone company truck? Well, apparently someone stole the truck from the company. Friday evening, the police found the truck abandoned blocks from the site. Posing as a policeman, I talked by phone with Myron Huffman, the director of security at the phone company. He said no employees had been sent out to that spot in that vehicle at that hour. Lou, Sal, and I went down in the manhole with flashlights. We found nothing around the base of the ladder, but there were tunnels going in several directions. In a nutshell, this is what happened Friday night. The 2 men posing as phone company employees stole a company truck and drove it to the site. Having flashlights and knowing their way around the tunnels, they waited at the bottom of the manhole until 7:07. When the bag fell, they grabbed it and ran down the tunnel of their choice. When Sal went down the ladder, he had no light. We had no chance to catch them. A long pause ensued, during which Epstein scratched his chin and stared in space. Finally, he broke the silence. "We're dealing with a really smart cookie, maybe more than one. The pair who played phone company workers may be just taking orders. What really puzzles me is that change of plans. Someone capable of designing and executing a job like this is not the sort of person to make abrupt changes. Either there's conflict within his group or an outsider has entered the picture. It doesn't matter. What is clear is that we have a traitor in our midst. There are two things I want you to do immediately. I was about to give you a list of 30 possible suspects from the Royal Flush, but I've decided to narrow the search at this time. Most of the names on the list are croupiers. They're all smart people, and so we can't entirely ignore them. However, for now, I want you to concentrate on the big names of the list: our lawyer, our accountant, director of personnel, director of finance, and the chief of security, as well as their top aides. That should limit the search to 10 or 12 names. The other thing I want you to do is to go out in the community and look for people who have suddenly acquired a lot of wealth. We're looking for big spenders. They could be throwing money away right now in our own casino. If you discover anything of interest, inform me at once. At 5 o'clock that afternoon, the phone rang in the office of Julius Epstein. Hello? Mr. Epstein, you have reneged on our agreement. Last night, you were supposed to have delivered $1 million in cash to the person I designated. You failed to do this. What are you talking about? I delivered just as I promised. You snatched it away, probably because you thought I'd catch you. Come, Mr. Epstein. You and I both know that you staged that business with the phone company truck to give the appearance that a third party was involved. In reality, the phone company people were your own men. With that stunt, you thought that you could avoid paying me. Cut the bull. You got the money. Well, if you persist in this charade, there's no value in argument. The truth is, I still have the upper hand. We are back to square one, except that, as punishment for your indiscretion, I shall expect you to pay me $2 million this time. Epstein began to swear. Now, Mr. Epstein, control yourself. I'm the one who got cheated. Here are the new instructions for delivery. Everything is before, except that the delivery point will be at a different location. Next Saturday evening, you will go to the intersection of Interstate 15 and Highway 93. Precisely at 7 p.m., you will start driving north on 93. Within 30 minutes, you will encounter a large truck marked STX in red letters, parked alongside the highway facing south. Stop at that location, walk across the highway, and hand the bag to the driver of the truck. Immediately thereafter, continue driving north on Highway 93 until you reach Highway 168. That will take you back to Interstate 15. Do not attempt to talk to the driver of the truck or to follow his vehicle. One final point. If you fail to comply fully as I've directed, this time I shall call Mr. Ragetti at once. Do you understand? Yes. As soon as the caller hung up, Epstein sent for his henchman. I'm almost certain now that there's an outsider in this affair. I don't know how he found out about this, but I want him bad. I offer $100,000 to the man among you who can bring me this person alive. On Monday evening, a grand celebration took place at the Huffman residence. During dessert of strawberry tarts, Evelyn Huffman said to her husband, "Tell us again exactly how it happened. This is too fantastic to believe." Well, late in the afternoon, I got a call from the Weber Car Agency. It was Mr. Weber himself. He asked me to drop by after work and stated that compliance with his request would be highly rewarding. Naturally, I was very curious, so I went there. A smiling Mr. Weber congratulated me on my good fortune. He said that an anonymous person had paid cash for a new Maserati and that I was to be its owner. I started to ask some questions, but he insisted that he knew nothing else. There was one condition of my acceptance. I must tell no one outside the family about the gift. And if anyone inquires about the car, I'm supposed to say that I bought it. It's incredible. Wally and I have dreamed of owning that vehicle, and now we do. Since being in Weber's office, I've asked myself 100 times, who would buy this car for me? I can't think of anyone close to me who could afford such a treasure. Did I say that even the license and taxes were paid for? As you said, Evelyn, it's just too fantastic to believe. On Wednesday afternoon, Lou burst into Epstein's office at the Royal Flush. Haven't I told you to knock? Yeah, boss, but I got something big to tell you. What is it? You remember that $100,000 reward you offered? Yeah, what about it? I might be able to collect it. Tell me what you know. You said to be on the lookout for someone who's suddenly rich. Well, I found a guy who's driving a new Maserati, one of those expensive Italian cars. Vegas isn't Beverly Hills, so about the only people you see driving cars like that around here are wealthy foreigners, oil sheiks, and movie stars. You know what I mean. Stop beating around the bush. Who is this guy driving the Maserati? That's just it. It's a local guy. That Maserati would probably cost 2 or 3 times his yearly salary. What's his name? Myron Huffman. He works for the phone company. What? Get Rudy in here at once. I seem to remember Rudy mentioning that name before. Yeah, boss, said Rudy upon entering the office. Does the name Myron Huffman mean anything to you? Yeah, that's the guy I told you about from the phone company. He's the head of their security department. That's it. That's our man. It all makes sense. He's a phone security man. Sometime in the recent past, he tapped into our phone lines and found out about our skimming operation. And then after he asked for $1 million, he got greedy. He said to himself, why don't I fake a robbery and ask for $2 million? He used a company truck and a couple of employees to pull off the heist, and then told the cops that the truck had been stolen. It all adds up. I really want this guy, but I also want my $1 million. By now, he's probably stashed most of it in some secret account in Switzerland or the Cayman Islands. Here's what I want you to do. Pick up this guy and beat him up, but don't kill him. Tell him that he's got 1 week to come up with $1 million or we'll kill him. After we get the money, we'll kill him anyway. Evelyn Huffman reached Ludlow Hospital at 9:10 Wednesday evening. At the reception desk, she spoke to a nurse. I'm Evelyn Huffman. My husband Myron was brought in here about 2 hours ago. Yes, Dr. Conyers saw him. Before you visit your husband, the doctor would like to speak to you. Please wait in that room over there. I'll page him. In a few minutes, a tall, young black man joined the anxious wife. Mrs. Huffman, your husband has some serious injuries. He insists that they resulted from a fall at work. Frankly, I don't believe that's possible. The bruised ribs, the lacerations and contusions he has sustained are more like those in a man who has been beaten. I think a call to the police would be appropriate. But your husband is adamant. He wants no call to the police. Talk to him and tell me what we should do. Evelyn cried when she saw her husband in bed. One eye was blackened. There were cuts and bruises on his face and arms. Breathing with difficulty, he told her what had happened. 2 tough-looking men had approached him after work. At gunpoint, they had forced him to accompany them to the desert. In an isolated spot, they had punched and kicked him at length. While lying on the ground, gasping for breath, He had been told to return the $1 million within 1 week or he would die. They ignored his protests and instructed him not to contact the police. Eventually, they returned him to Las Vegas and dumped him beside the road. "What do they mean about the $1 million?" Evelyn asked. "I don't know. They've evidently confused me with someone else. But the scary thing is that they expect me to pay them or they'll kill me. I don't know what to do. There's no way we could raise that amount of money." "How long are you supposed to remain in the hospital?" "I was real lucky. Although my ribs are bruised, I have no broken bones. The doctor doesn't advise it, but he concedes that I could leave the hospital as early as tomorrow." "Myron, you get out of here as soon as possible. Then go straight to your Aunt Ivy's place in Reno. Wally and I will join you by Monday. For the doctor, let's stick to the story about an accident at work. I won't tell Wally what really happened. I wouldn't want him to worry. Do you suppose this beating and the talk about the $1 million is somehow connected to the gift of the Maserati?" "Who can say?" On Thursday, Wally drove the Maserati to Saguaro High. He and his car were the center of attention all day. After school, he gave short rides to 3 groups of friends. About 4:30, he headed back home. A black Maxima raced past him on the road and slowed down so that he was on its tail. In the rearview mirror, Wally saw that he was sandwiched between 2 vehicles. Gradually, they forced him to stop. A hard-faced man exited the Maxima and walked to the driver's door of the Maserati. Wally opened the window. "This is a mighty fancy car for a young man like you," said Lou. "There's someone who wants to meet you. Please follow us." As he spoke, the man showed Wally a gun. The 3 vehicles drove to the edge of the city and stopped once more. Wally was blindfolded and forced to sit in the back seat of the Maxima. The cars drove another 15 minutes. Still blindfolded, Wally was escorted into a building and tied to a chair. 2 hours passed. Then the young man heard voices in an adjacent room. A door opened and 2 men entered. "Well, kid, this wouldn't have happened if your old man hadn't cheated us. You can blame your troubles on him." "What do you mean?" "Your father stole $1 million from us. That's how he was able to buy the Maserati." But he didn't buy the Maserati. Someone gave it to him." "Yeah, sure. Someone like Santa Claus, you mean?" Wally could hear laughing. "So what do you want with me?" "You're our insurance. If he doesn't pay back the money, you die. If he pays back the money, you go free." So that was it. These people thought his dad had stolen the money. If he told them the truth, Dad would go free and he would be killed, maybe Bar too. But if he kept his mouth shut, perhaps nothing would happen to any of them. Dad was safe at Aunt Ivy's in Reno. These gangsters knew nothing about Bar and the money in his possession. For revenge, would they really kill the innocent son of their missing enemy? Saying nothing was the better risk to take. So when the hoodlums started to ask him questions, Wally played dumb. Early Friday morning, a phone call aroused Myron Huffman from a sound sleep. It was his wife in tears. She had just discovered Wally missing. Apparently, he had not returned home the previous night, for his bed had not been slept in. Then 10 minutes ago, a strange man had called to say that Wally was his prisoner. The message contained a terrible threat. It said, "Your husband thinks he's being cute by running away, but if he doesn't return the $1 billion on time, we're going to kill your son." Evelyn was in total despair. She could not be consoled. Finally, Myron told her not to worry. He had a plan to take care of things. About 10 o'clock Saturday morning, Wally awoke, stiff and sore. He had spent all night tied to the chair, and he still wore the blindfold. The door opened and someone entered the room. A raspy voice said, "I've got both good and bad news for you. I'll give you the good news right now. We're going to release you." Wally's skepticism proved unfounded. With the blindfold still on, he was taken by car to another part of the city. Before pushing him into an alley, one of the captors stuck a newspaper into his shirt. Wally struggled to his feet and removed the blindfold. In the distance, a black car was speeding away. He picked up the newspaper and began to cry. A front-page story bore the headline, "Bank Robber Killed in Reno." On Sunday afternoon, Julius Epstein waited anxiously by his phone. It rang about 3 o'clock. "Hello?" "Mr. Epstein, you amuse me. Again, you failed to comply with my instructions. Didn't you take my warning seriously?" "Of course, you just don't understand. You can't round up $2 million in cash that easily, especially after you've already raised $1 million. But the count was short. You sent us only $1.75 million. Yes, I know, that's all I could get within the time limit, but I swear I'll send you the rest within 3 days. Sorry, but that's not good enough. It's a matter of self-image. I could not degrade myself that way. I spoke to Mr. Righetti 2 hours ago." Sunday evening at dinner, Subja Singh had an important announcement for his family. "Wonderful news! I have won a fortune on a wager at the casino." Turning to his wife, he said, "You've always wanted to go back to India, and now you can do it in splendor." Stunned by this development, his son Barinda exclaimed, "But Dad, I don't want to go to India. I have lots of friends here, and you've given me that new Lexus. Besides, what about your job as accountant of the Royal Flush?" "Oh, you'll make new friends in India. It's true that my job has been very rewarding. As an accountant, I was able to note certain unusual activities at the casino. Using my computer skills, I was able to make my winning wager. As we leave the United States, we must not forget that this country has made much possible for us. Truly, America is a land of opportunity." End of story. Wally paid a heavy price for his gain. Next time I'll have more poetry for you. Thanks for watching Dramas, Dreams, and Drollery.